Good morning on the West Coast, good afternoon on the East Coast, and happy days everywhere in between. Today is Wednesday, May 28th, and as I always say, it's a beautiful day to have a webinar. I'm John Yearn, CEO of the Performance-Driven Marketing Institute, a 501c6 not-for-profit trade association dedicated to protecting, promoting, and advancing the direct-to-consumer and performance-driven marketing industries. On behalf of the entire PDMI family, it's my pleasure welcoming you back to another fun-filled and exciting episode of the PDMI Take 20. As a reminder, the PDMI Take 20 is a quick-hitting roundtable discussion led by industry experts on trending topics, all in roughly 20 minutes. And today we're joined by two amazing industry experts, including my friend Scott Berger of Scripps and Ron Cortono of Full House Solutions. And together, we'll be diving into episode number 4, the sports marketing landscape of the PDMI's Hot Category Series. Whether it's ticket holders at the stadium or fans on the couch, brands want access to that audience. However, before we get started, please allow me to do a little housekeeping. If you'd like to ask a question, and we encourage you to do so, please use your control panel. Please use the questions tab located in your control panel. Also, please note you're welcome to ask questions throughout today's conversation, but we will hold all replies to the end of today's discussion. Alrighty, folks, with that said, it's my pleasure to introduce today's moderator. In high school, he was voted most likely to host a webinar series. He's the fearless Chris Foster. Chris is Vice President of New Business of Modern Postcard, a direct marketing agency located in Carlsbad, California. In addition to his day job, Chris is the chairperson of the PDMI's Brand Response Council and the host of the podcast, Men Folks Journey. As always, Chris, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much. And for the 115th time, because today is the 115th episode, take it away, my friend. Take it away.
Why, thank you, Johnny, so much. What a wonderful introduction. And welcome, Scott, and welcome, Ron, to Take 20. It's the first time for both of you, so we're so excited to have you here. And we're going to talk about this incredible industry on sports marketing. With all the changes that's happening in marketing today, with devices, with streaming services, linear, CTV, et cetera, there is one constant through line, and that is that live events, and most importantly, live sports events, still get eyeballs, still get attention, and to John's point, still get the attention of advertisers. But sports marketing has evolved like all industries, and it's worthy of a closer look, especially in the light of the changes that we're talking about with streaming, linear, broadcast network, and the proliferation of even more professional leagues. Even in my hometown of San Diego, we have a new professional lacrosse league. And in the past, major TV networks and local linear stations would broadcast these national, local, or regional games. But now it's different, right? MLS games stream on Apple subscriptions. San Diego FC, let's go. WNBA has a Friday night spotlight on ION. Scott's going to talk about that. Thursday NFL games are on Amazon Prime. Sunday Night Football is broadcast on NBC and it streams on Peacock. I can watch my beloved Brentford Bees EPL on Peacock. MLB games are on the MLB Network or even the Yes Network if you happen to be a Yankees fan, right? It's also available on Fubo and Hulu too, right? If you add those to the subscriptions. So what I'm saying is that it's a jumble. It's a jumble. But live events, especially sports, still continue to be the biggest draws for audiences. And they represent huge opportunities for brand and direct response advertisers. And for viewership, it's more complex than ever. And teams are trying to get fans into seats and gain more viewership. They're trying to do some social post engagement. They're plus trying to do merchandise sales. They're trying to create followers on TikTok. It's everything. So we're going to dive in. We've got some industry experts here. So excited. Ron Contorno from Full House Solutions. We're going to start with you. You've been in the industry for 20 plus years. You started in it when you were in elementary school, it seems.
Thank you.
You work directly with teams to bring people into the seats, right? To bring people into the events itself. What are you hearing as kind of their biggest and their current challenges?
Yeah, thank you. It's all about butts and seats with our company. And what I'm hearing is going on now, and this is probably not a new concern, it's an ongoing challenge, if you will, and that's ticket usage. So it's, there's a lot of games, especially baseball, right? If you're a Major League Baseball team of 81 home games, and I don't care how much you like the Padres or the White Sox, that's just a lot of games, right? It's hard to get to the stadium or the arena. It's, it's very expensive, right? just the ticket, but the concessions and the parking and the merchandise. So it's very pricey as well. And obviously the viewing experience at home is very good now too. You get the big TV, you get all these different, camera angles and replays that you're not going to get in venue. So it's just a lot of, issues with getting people to put their butt in the seat. And I think what it lends itself to, and what these teams end up competing with, is the secondary ticket providers like the SeatGeeks and the StubHubs, and the with Vivid Seats, I think, is another player in that space as well. So the team may directly sell a season ticket, but if that team is not in a sold out situation, they're now competing with the secondary providers like a SeatGeek, for instance. So I don't know, a couple weekends ago, I wanted to go watch the Cubs and White Sox. We drove down to Chicago. I'm in the Milwaukee area, and I honestly didn't even look at Ticketmaster. The Cubs leading, that's their primary ticket provider, Ticketmaster or Tickets.com. I can't remember which one it was. I went right to SeatGeek and bought my seats and went down, and and the Cubs are probably a little bit more different of a situation, but most teams struggle to sell out, and they're selling that ticket once to the season ticket holder, but someone else is selling that ticket again, and it's taking away that ticket sale from the team, moving forward. Another, above and beyond the ticket usage, I think teams have always been challenged with selling to businesses. I think they know that, that suite lease, the luxury suite needs to be sold to a business. Sponsorships obviously need to be sold to a business, but there's always opportunity for selling, half season ticket packages and full season ticket packages and premium seating, club seats, if you will, to businesses and not just individuals. So that's always a challenge. And really, post-COVID, I guess a third challenge they're having now is kind of building back up their sales staffs. So there was a ton of layoffs during COVID, right? Like no one was selling tickets. They were kind of, bare bones as far as operations, especially in the sales departments. And I think people kind of went to work in other industries and realized they didn't want to come back. And maybe the younger demographic, the next generation, just doesn't want to work the long hours and be there until 9 or 10 o'clock at night and then back the next morning selling, just to have that business card from the local team, right? That was so cool to have, for previous generations. So ticket usage, ongoing challenge, selling to businesses, and staff and hiring continue to be challenges for these teams.
That's really insightful, Ron. Thank you. I don't think anyone would have, been able to open that door for us except for you with your inside purview with, major sports teams throughout the country. So thank you for that. And I want to get back to some of those challenges, but before we do, I'd like to pivot to Scott and say, hey, the WNBA season just opened. Indiana Fever and New York Liberty had sellout crowds in their arenas. Speaking to Ron's thing about ticket usage, all those tickets were used. And as the WNBA expands to even more viewership, talk about the Scripps and WNBA contract, how that came about, what you're so excited about, and tell us more about this situation.
For sure. Thanks, Chris. And Ron, loved your insight into the ticket world and the actual physical being there. And there's certainly nothing that compares to. I was fortunate to go to the first New York Liberty game a couple of weeks ago to a sold out crowd. So energetic. Brooklyn was on fire. And, fortunately from my side of the house, with such a lean into women's sports and the WNBA in particular, exciting part on that when it comes to ticket sales is that they've skyrocketed 145% compared to last season, 28% increase in first time buyers. So, I know that may be somewhat of an anomaly, but, that goes hand in glove with being a juggernaut that the WNBA is, fans gravitating towards it. When it comes to ION and the lean into women's sports in particular with WNBA and Friday nights, 84% of sports fans are interested in watching women's sports. 51% of the fans are men. So there is no longer, we're past the stigma of what it may or may not be. This is big time sports. So that is how the company got there. And it's just been a continual, growth. We saw, compared to 23 and 2024, we saw the viewership grow 133% on ION, and that is not counting where we're going to be this year with so much excitement. In addition to the Caitlin Clark effect, we have Paige Beckers, the third player in the history of the WNBA, not including Caitlin Clark, which I know is a surprise to everybody, that had 10 points, 10 assists, double-double within the first 3 games of her career. Recently, a few weeks ago, Asia Wilson released her Nike sneaker. It sold out within minutes. So that has been phenomenal. And, the company has seen a way to really lean into those women's sports, right? Because it's not only exclusive to the WNBA on Friday nights. We're also having Saturday night seasons of the NWSL air on Saturday nights from June to October. In addition to that, for the first time ever, Sports Illustrated is taking their brand equity and bringing that to screens across the world with ION, or I should say the country, but Sports Illustrated Women's Games is going to start in October, and that's going to have a multitude of different sports, and then the Fort Myers NCAA Women's Basketball Classic. So we are finding such success in the viewership with the WNBA that was the initial lean in, and knowing the excitement and people are gravitating towards women's sports in such a bigger way. And with that success have continued to add to that and really carve out a niche in the world of women's sports.
I love it. There are a couple of things that I want to dig into and unpack a little bit. First, congratulations on sport and Scripps on well done, you guys. And I did see it was all over everybody's feeds. We saw the championship ring ceremony for New York Liberty. It was off the hook. Like, it was crazy. So that was really cool. And I'm not even a fan. We don't have a women's basketball team in San Diego, but we do have the San Diego Wave. And I want to talk about that later. But I'm curious what you just mentioned with Asia having now a shoe that got sold out in minutes. How do you see, beyond just going to an arena or an event, this type of movement expand into merchandise or other social type of marketing?
I think it all starts with the studio shows that we have surrounding the games that are going to allow for personalities and storylines to be built, right? We want to have Asia's presence and her life story told in the same way when we look at LeBron James, Steph Curry, and we know them in an intimate level. We know their backstories. We've been following them. We know about their life. And I believe understanding who that athlete is, not just watching them on the court, but really investing in studio shows to build out the personalities and expose the audience to who that person really is what takes it to the next level and allows for players like Asia to have that exposure and have that Nike drop that's going to sell out in minutes.
Awesome. That's awesome. I love it. So Ron, I'm gonna pivot to you a little bit, because you just talked about, it's great when, the Liberty or the Fever have sellout crowds, and that's awesome. But there are times, like you said, where the White Sox or the Cubs, hey, it's 80 games, we've got to get people in. Or even our own new San Diego Football Club, we sold out the first several matches, but then it starts to wane a little bit in terms of attendance, and you got to drive people in. So to do that, what marketing tactics, from either digital or to direct mail, have you seen working to bring in new fans, especially some of the younger ones?
Yeah, I mean, we continue to be bullish on direct mail. I think it's harder and harder to get even your existing customers to look at an email now. I mean, we'll send out an email promoting some ideas and best practices to about 700 or 800 people that we've done business with before. And I'm not sure if everybody's looking at it, to be honest with you, but something tangible that they can hold in their hand, that can be personalized, put the last name on the back of a jersey, put the company name on the Jumbotron, all things you can do with digital printing, continues to be very successful. And I think actually as postage goes up and there's less direct mail, it's more impactful as well. So we're very bullish on direct mail, especially on the business side, right? Businesses for, targeting businesses for season tickets, for group outings, and for premium seating. And kind of, you want the low-hanging fruit, right? You want to drive that inbound business, but if nothing else, it's going to warm up that sales rep's follow-up call. which is
Right.
really, really important. And then on the consumer side, I think you have to be a little bit more strategic there. The consumer campaigns that we do direct mail for our partners that tend to work the best are kind of milestone-y, if you will. It's birthdays, it's new movers, it's new
makes sense.
homeowners.
Uh-huh.
And it's also mailing to your website visitors, using postcard retargeting. And if someone hits your site and they're, looking at your ticket sales pages and they're in market, send them a postcard. And direct mail will work very good in that instance as well. We're also seeing a lot of teams, and maybe this lends itself to the staffing issues, are starting to use AI sales agents.
Oh,
there's two main players in the space. One's Conversica, one's WolfCycle, and it seems like a lot of the teams are using these AI sales agents. And it's working really well for consumer marketing, getting that single game buyer to buy a package, for instance, or to take a meeting. I really think though on the B2B side, it's still kind of the blocking and tackling the fundamentals, right? Have a good list, mail to that list, email where you can, and follow up with a phone call. Prospecting, invite them to a prospecting event. That's still like the B2B fundamentals are still in place.
Yeah.
We're also, very a good strategy is not only on the postcard retargeting, but identifying those website visitors. And now there's tools to get their emails too. So get their email of a website visitor and get them into a nurture campaign, educate them, and hopefully get them to a point where they're ready to have a meeting or ready to buy. And I know youth. Did you ask the youth part of the question? I know that was part of.
So for the younger fans, because even Scott was mentioning that he had, a huge increase of first-time attendees to his games. So how are you thinking about, from a tactical side, that sports marketers, meaning marketers within a sports team, get those new fans?
It doesn't have a ton to do with how we're doing business with them, but what I'm seeing in the industry is these ballpark passes. So it's kind of like a monthly subscription, and you pay $40 a month, and it gives you access to, I think, almost like every home game. You don't know where you're going to be sitting at, but it gets you out to the game. So I think for the kind of the next generation coming up, I think the ballpark passes are very interesting, very affordable, and also kind of like these open beer gardens, if you will, at the stadiums and arenas. I think are perfect for that demographic as well. So I think the teams have tackled it with these ballpark passes, arena passes, if you will, and just kind of places to hang out. I think that's kind of how that demographic wants to consume the product in venue.
I think that's a really insightful comment, Ron, because what that does, actually, it ties into two things that we know about Generation Z and some of the behavioral trends that have already been studied. A, it's the largest subscription generation because they grew up having their parents subscribe to Netflix or Disney Plus, but they're all about subscriptions, whether it's like a class pass to go to yoga centers or fitness centers. But I love that idea of subscribing to go to venues and to get your tickets. And the other place is it's not necessarily in the game to watch the game, but it's being at the game, right? The beer gardens, the Instagram moments. If you don't like baseball and you don't want to watch every pitch, you can still be there in the atmosphere. That's really good insight. And speaking of atmosphere, Scott, I'd like to talk about how kind of the ecosystem and the atmosphere of the WNBA seems now to have this positive spillover effect into other women's sports. You've mentioned it with the NWSL adding, its, viewership, and maybe the SI women's games. What I saw was that there was recently there was the Professional Women's Hockey Federation, the PWHL. They had this inaugural game in Toronto, and it was sold out. And they had these takeover tour games in Vancouver, Denver, and Detroit, sold out completely. Our own San Diego Wave in the NWSL seen really strong attendance. They went to the playoffs. Alex Morgan, international superstar, was on our team. So I'm thinking, and I'd love you to comment on this, will the success that you've seen so far initially with the WNBA, especially with the viewership and the television and broadcasting, translate into other streaming or broadcast viewer opportunities?
Definitely. Again, we started out with the WNBA, with the NWSL, and with the success in, audience that we're seeing, this gravitate towards, It's available for free in many different ways when it's on Ion, right? You have the fast way of consuming, whether it's through all of the virtual MVPDs, the Ion app, or cable, or just, you know, somebody that's cord cutter that's just going to tune into the broadcast network. You have access at all times. So that has spilt over and really gotten the attention of advertisers and marketers. It's also gotten the attention of companies like Sports Illustrated. So we start to talk about some of the sports that may not have been at the forefront, as you're discussing. So with the SI women's games, you're going to get basketball, but you're also going to get volleyball, and you're going to get women's combat sports, and so on and so forth. So there's many different ways that, you know, we're consuming. And then, you know, even with the basketball takeoff, now a lean into the Fort Myers Classic to have the college basketball audience with the NCAA, you know,
Sure.
tournament going on as well. So it's spilling over into several different sports, and there is a massive audience that wants to see women sports in particular, and we have completely leaned into that.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
And you just talking about other sports too. Ron, I'm going to go back to you because there's a huge sport group that we don't often talk about. But I read a stat recently that 80% of America lives near a minor league baseball team. So beyond these major leagues, there are thousands of these, you know, maybe hundreds, you know best, of these minor league teams and these other leagues kind of thriving in this space. What are you seeing in terms of the growth or the marketing opportunities for minor league teams, especially minor league baseball?
Yeah, I mean, that's all about value, right? Like, it's so much less expensive, and you know, it's easier to get the ballpark. It's less expensive for tickets and concessions and parking, family fun, and really, you know, the kids probably don't care, you know, they don't care who wins the game, and they just want to see, you know, have a good time, and maybe you just want to go with your buddies and watch a game, and you're not, you know, that interested to go, you know, drive and go through the hassle of getting to a major league arena or ballpark or stadium. So I just think it's, you know, it's family, it's fun, it's community, and a lot of times you have, you know, your suburban minor league teams, but then you also have where it's maybe the only game in town. Like if you're in like Toledo, like you're gonna go to the Mud Hens game, right? There's not a major league team there. So there's I think a community aspect to it as well, to go along with the value and the family and the fun.
I love it. And that kind of keeps it local, right? And I think that helps with those local advertisers and those local marketers to get in front of that, right, of their local audience. Scott, I think I'm going to wrap it up with you because, believe it or not, guys, we're already past almost to the half an hour mark. We can talk about this for hours. So Scott, I'll finish with you. What do you think, I should say the future of viewership, but the futures of viewership looks like, right? If a team doesn't have their own network, for example, our San Diego Football Club is streaming. The only way you can watch them is either to go to the game or to see them on Apple, right? And there are times when a game you can only see on Apple because of subscription. Sometimes it's free. But when this starts moving towards a place where fans have cut the cord, they don't have a regional or broadcast, and they don't want to necessarily sign up for national streaming, et cetera, what is this futures of viewership going to look like, do you think?
I mean, with the audience fragmentation, you know, consuming the media in all different ways and shapes and sizes, that's where, whether it's regional and, you know, for Scripps in particular, we have over 40 markets where we have broadcast rights to, you know, that particular region. So we have NHL teams that we're really leaned into. We have the opportunity to reach those local audiences with several different sports, and you know, some of the more legacy blue chip sports that, you know, fans have always been watching. But again, with Ion in particular, we put ourselves in a unique spot because we do have the ability to access, whether you're streaming, whether you're watching through cable, or if you have cut the cord, you have that opportunity to just watch through broadcast television with, you know, traditional rabbit ears, if that's how you want to consume it. So it's really about meeting the customer where they're at and finding ways without having to pay for a million different subscriptions to access the inventory. I should say access the inventory for our marketers and reach that consumer who's tuning in.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's great. Cool. Johnny, it is already 11:30. I told you guys we could move fast. What kind of questions do we have from the audience?
First of all, great job, guys. I'm going to come from the voice of God here, and I'll come back and join you in just a minute. But since we're running a little behind, and we apologize about that technical snafu at the start, let's just do one question today. How do sports leagues, franchises, and brands collaborate together to build a stronger fan base, despite having different priorities and expectations from those fans? So in other words, I think they're asking, like, you've got the stadiums and the franchises and the leagues want the fans butts and seats, as Ron said. The networks want butts on couches because they want audiences through the television, linear streaming, so on and so forth. And the brands simply want access to those people to sell products to. So how do they all come together to reach one common goal, which is to have the biggest audience possible, but of course they have their own priorities and expectations from these fans?
I think they just need to find some common ground, right? They're get in a room and figure out what the common ground is, and something, a plan that kind of benefits everybody, and people are going to have to give a little bit to get.
Yeah, and I believe that it's just going to be the audience finds where that sport is that they can't live without. So whether it is being in attendance, whether it is finding a way to consume it, if there's something that you need to watch, there's going to be a way that the audience is going to find it. And, the support of our advertising community is certainly one way that these different leagues are going to continue to be able to grow and continue to grow their scale, their reach, and find new audiences and just continue to grow.
I also think too that it's a question of diversification from the marketer or the brand, right? So the brand makes sure that it's got signage in the stadium, right? It's got some type of sponsorship where they're going to have some part of the field of the lights, or they've got a consistent sponsorship in stadium for those fans. But then they also follow that up with consistent brands and consistent marketing and advertising on the viewer side, right? So that as a brand, you want to be synonymous with a team. You're going to have to do that in a lot of different ways. So it's not just either sponsorship or advertising, but my hunch is it's probably both.
That's a well-rounded answer, guys. Thank you. I'm going to come back in here and join you to close things out. Hey. Well, guys, phenomenal session. Scott, Ron, Chris, great conversation today. Thank you for sharing your insight, your knowledge, your expertise on the subject. Always great to hear from you. Folks, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did and got as much out of it as I did. Before we close out, I'd like to take a moment to invite you to join us on our next episode of the PDMI Take 20, which is hosted Wednesday, June 11th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Can you guys believe we're going into June? Where is the year gone, right? It's crazy. I'd also like to remind you that PDMI's fall conference, PDMI West, is scheduled for October 6th through 8th in San Diego at the Intercontinental Hotel. It'll be summer, and then we'll all be in San Diego in a blink of an eye. So put it on your calendar. Make sure you get your badges. If you get your badges, go to thepdmi.com. That's thepdmi.com. And as a badge holder, you can save up to $200 a night at our host hotel, which is the Intercontinental Hotel in San Diego. You'll get a special link when you buy your badge, and then savings start right from there. Finally, class is in session, folks. It is in session. I'd like to encourage you to check out the all-new PDMI University with 10 powerful courses. This online and on-demand program is designed to elevate your game. So with that said, folks, thanks for joining us today. Make it a great day. We look forward to seeing you next time.